Wonderful. Is anybody here seems like they've been working on? Okay. Are any of you here caring for a parent, spouse, or how about caring for another family member or friend? All right. And who is here who's with a senior care as a profession? Wonderful, wonderful. You can see you're not alone. We got a lot of people in the room, varied backgrounds, and this is the place for you. You're in the right place at the right time. We're here to share. ACAP is Adult Children of Aging Parents. It's a nonprofit organization whose mission is to provide information, resources, support, and community for adult children who are caring for the aging parents and for sometimes themselves. While our focus is on adult children, our programs are everyone but the spouses, siblings, friends, professionals, everybody's welcome here. So all of our programs are free of charge. You can find additional resources, some hopefully soon past program videos and upcoming program schedules at www.acapcommunities.org. How many found us through the website? Social media? Cool. Awesome. Before we begin, I've got a couple of notes about the materials when you check in. Hopefully you can pick up some rent cards. Rent cards you can absolutely share those with friends, family, attorneys, anybody who is in this work or caring for others. It's a great way for us to get the word out about what we're doing here so we can fill this room. Eventually, we want this room filled full of people. So you also got a program schedule, which has a lot of our upcoming programs. If you're a new attendee, and this is your first time, there's a small slip. Hopefully we had you give us your name and contact information. That way we can let you know what's coming up in future programs. And I will promise you, we will not share that information with anyone. Okay? That is strictly for us to keep you guys informed. And then you're also, as far as feedback, you're going to be getting an email in a couple of days asking you what you thought of our program. It helps us keep providing good materials, good information about what's going on, and help keep all of you informed and provide the things that you want. None of this would be possible without our sponsors and their generous support. First, I would like to talk about our legacy sponsor, that is Forsyth Hospital. They've done a tremendous help for us becoming our legacy sponsor. That is our sponsorship. We also have two other chapter sponsors. We have Forsyth Family Senior Services, which we have somebody representing them here today, and also Big and Deep Memorial, who operates a couple of cemeteries and all. Tonight, we have two program sponsors. The first I'd like to introduce is Jeff Barnett with Palmetto Vet. Jeff, would you come up and spend 2 minutes, tell us who you are and what you do.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Stephen. So Stephen mentioned, my name is Jeff Barnett. I'm the owner of a bath company in town called Palmetto Bath. Feel free to come back and find me a little bit later. A little bit about me. This is an interesting meeting for me because I'm actually kind of in maybe the same situation many of you are. My parents are starting to age. My parents are 79 and 80. I just put my in-laws down. And so we're kind of going through the same types of things. And so, as you guys may know, the bathroom is the #1 place for falls in the house here as well. And so about 50% of what we do is actually specializing in safety showers. And so with most people, when you think about it and you're buying a home, you're kind of inheriting that bathroom, right? So there's a generic bathroom, something there. It's not necessarily designed for you or at the stage of life that you're at. And so we help a number of seniors make that bathroom more functional. Oftentimes, it's very simply, I've got a tub and a shower, and I just need something where I don't have to step over and go in, right? Or it's other things about how do you place grab bars in the right place? What's some comfortable seating locations? How do you actually access things like a shower bar to where you can actually take care of yourself, right? And so it can be a very humbling experience for a lot of people when they have to ask for help, particularly in the bathroom area and things like that. So we will, focus on that just to make sure that that's functional. So I want to thank the ACAP folks for having me here, certainly as well. And even if it's not bathroom related, I have all sorts of tips and things like that too about how to kind of make visitors the safer as well. So thank you very much for having me.
Wonderful. Our executive offer tonight is Lee Cantrell with Comprehensive Care Insurance. Lee is also on our leadership team of our chapter.
Thanks, Steve. So yes, I'm Lee Cantrell. I'm the owner of CCI, Comprehensive Care Insurance. I've been in insurance for about 20 years. 17 of those, though, have been spent really specializing in Medicare. And I've spent 17 years in leadership roles with people like United Healthcare, Cigna, you name it. I've probably been there and helped them develop their plans. But about a year ago, I decided I'm going to take a step in another direction. And that was because I have an 85-year-old, actually no, 86-year-old father. And I realized that Medicare does not cover everything, right? Who knows Medicare does not cover long-term care? Hopefully everyone in this room, right? Because it is so important to understand the gaps of the care that Medicare can support, and also what Medicare can do for you. And so we really make education our basis. One of the things that I provided for my dad that I learned about is I have a healthcare policy. It actually, since we are all caregivers here, one of the things I think is so cool about it, it actually will pay you as the caregiver to come in and, I do his laundry, right? I make up his bed, even though he's in a facility. And so it will actually pay up to $75 a day. There's only 2 knockout questions. Do they live in assisted living or long-term care today? And then they perform all their ADLs, their activities of daily living. Other than that, you can qualify for that. I had no idea that there were things like that out there until I got on this side. So if you're interested in hearing more about that, long-term care, even short-term care, I'll be in the back, and I'd love to answer any questions I'll have.
All right. So thank you for our responses and chat with them, ask your questions. And now, who's ready for our program? All right. Falls are one of the leading causes of injury among older adults. Now, I want to start off with a few statistics. Falls should not, capital N-O-T, be considered a normal part of age. According to the CDC, more than 1 out of 4 people over age 65 are going to fall each year. Each year, 3 million older people are treated in emergency departments for injuries during falls. Falls are the most common cause of traumatic brain injury. This is one that's really close to me. A quarter of seniors with fracture of the hip from a fall will die within 6 months of injury. I was sharing with my father-in-law 1 month. More than half of these falls will occur in the home. And the cost of falls is staggering. Last year, it's estimated $50 billion spent just on medical costs. And it does not include the cost of post-acute care. So the good news is that many of these falls are preventable. So tonight, we're going to learn how aging affects balance and mobility, how to assess above one's risks, walk away with practical strategies that you can use and put to work right away. Tonight's format, we're going to do a panel discussion. I love panel discussions because it encourages you, the audience, ask questions, and that's perfectly all right. We want this to be open and informative. It's my job as the moderator to make sure that we stay on track, get everything in. Okay? So let's like to introduce our families. First, we have Cynthia Wright. She goes by Cindy. She is a licensed occupational therapist, a home accessibility specialist, and the owner of Enable Home Solutions LLC, where she specializes in making home environments safer for aging adults. Laura Kelly is a certified therapeutic recreation specialist and the founder and CEO of Empowered Recreational Therapy LLC, where she helps older adults stay active, confident, and independent. And last but not least, Bill Price is the owner of Mobility Scooters and More. And he brings hands-on experience in mobility devices and equipment solutions for older adults. I do want to mention that Cynthia is a core sponsor of the North Atlanta chapter of ACAP, and Bill is a core sponsor of our chapter here. So without further ado, let's get into the questions. Our first question is going to be a relatively easy one, but it's a big topic. Why are falls a concern in the aging process? Cynthia, let's start with you.
Right. Oh, just hold it down. Oh, I see.
All right, now you can hear me? Okay. So like Steve, well, hello, first of all, thank you all so much for having us here today. So I guess first of all, when it comes to falls, like Steve said, falls should not be considered a normal part of aging. So why are they so prevalent? Unfortunately, every single thing that happens to us as we age increases our risk for falls. So I have to wear glasses now to drive. I did not have to do that when I was 30. So that's one thing that increases my risk for falls is decreased vision. The other things that happens to everybody, it just depends on each person. Everything is varied in timing and in severity, but we all lose some flexibility, strength, vision, hearing, our balance is decreased. So all of those things that happen to us as we age, again, varied in timing and severity, all increases our risk for falls. The statistics that Steve provided are very real statistics. Falls can make us, as family members and caregivers, want to fix the situation by either telling someone, number one, not to move as much, right? Just stay, no, I'll get it for you. Which then increases our risk because we're not moving as much, which will obviously, right? And then it also makes people say, oh, let's get you into an assisted living or get you somewhere else. And that may also not really decrease risks. So that's kind of why.
Anything you want?
I guess I'd just say that the nature of falls can change over time. And as people, something that Cindy said kind of triggered something in me, not all solutions are created equal. So you can't just say, oh, mom's getting older, so she needs a walker. Or mom's getting older, so she needs whatever. It's quite individualized, and it's not one size fits all.
Hi, everyone. I'm so used to being loud and using a microphone is new for me. So, anyway, thanks for being here. I would add, from a recreational therapist standpoint, we really look at it from not just physical and environmental, but I'm sure a lot of you are here today from a cognitive perspective. That's a big portion of fall risk and mitigating that cognitive, the decision making, the impulsivity that can happen as we age. That's a big risk factor. And then behaviors, right? When somebody maybe gets hospitalized, they're at more risk for delirium or cognitive decline. That can also lead to if they had just a small little cognitive that can be exacerbated in the hospital, then they get discharged home. And now maybe they're wandering, right? So from a rec therapist standpoint, sometimes we look at how can we not just look at this person physically, but also cognitively keeping them safe and then keeping them more engaged to hopefully prevent some of those more high risk fall behaviors like wandering, etc.
So that kind of leads me into the next question. And Laura, I'm going to ask you to answer this one first. If falls should not be considered normal, but we know that we have increased risk, how do we meet the challenge to increase the risk?
Yeah. First and foremost, it takes a village, right? So number one thing, right, is obviously get those traditional therapies, right? If you see any small change, right, you have to talk to that person's doctor about getting that PT, OT speech order to have them evaluated, right? And that could be at any setting. because it does, it takes a village, right? But then they're discharged. And that's where reality hits, right? And unfortunately, sometimes these systems can fail us. How many people have seen the 5-page print-offs of the exercises that somebody's supposed to do at their sink? Okay, have you ever exercised with an older adult? Okay, you tell them to do this, they're doing right, and they like to move fast. So it's not always realistic to hand somebody with low vision, right? And cognitive impairment say, I know you're so excited to do these packet of exercises. And then how many of you are caregivers? Then you become the person to say, it's time to do your exercise. Oh, it's time for you to eat, right? You become all these things. So what I have found that is vitally important in falls is what is their purpose, right? Once you get them back to that baseline, they participate in PTOT speech. What are they getting up for every day, right? And that looks different for everybody, which brings me to my next point is modifying activities. Even though falls may not be normal, right? How many of you maybe have a loved one that they used to be an athlete, they used to paint, they used to bike, right? And then they get these conditions or they age and they say, we can't do this anymore, or I can't, or maybe they're still biking and they shouldn't be. We could all write a book, okay? That's where you need to look into modifying an activity, right? There are plenty of programs out there that are Catalyst Sports does adaptive biking for $10, right? And you can keep older adults safe. There's adaptive kayaking. If you're just like, hey, I need this person to even be active at home, there are a ton of free resources that you can engage with people. The key word then is engaged. You're all sitting here thinking physical falls, the number one exacerbation of disease, right, is social isolation. Okay, so do not let them stay in that house, right? Or have people come over and visit if they can't leave the house, right? Social is huge. I know you don't think about that as a direct correlation. And then lastly, I would add, did you know that depression is a fall risk factor, right? Somebody's on an antidepressant and they're depressed, it increases that fall risk, right? So adapting, giving them something to look forward to stay active is huge. And if you need some free tips and education, you now know a rec therapist. I'm happy to do this and give you some ideas. I love it's called fully loaded pistols. I love a challenge. So I'd be happy to be a resource for you. But really taking a step back and looking at that. The last resource I will share with you about what's not normal, right, is some of it, it's not preventable. So if you're in a situation where it's falls management, there's a great free workshop. We love free. It's called Atlanta Judo Midtown. If you haven't heard of this resource, they offer a free workshop and they teach them how to fall. And that is empowering, okay? Because they're saying, if you're out in the garden, we're gonna work on practicing a backwards fall. I had my mom take it, okay? It's excellent. There's only, you get one free workshop and then they'll work you in, but I'm telling you, it's not always about preventing a fall. It can also be learning how to fall. So I'm sorry that was a lot, but hopefully you got a couple of nuggets out of that.
It's a big subject.
It's a big subject. Yes, ma'am.
So can you develop the measures, like, other than bringing somebody?
I'm sorry, can I say that again?
Can you like develop like dementia, like
From a fall?
yes?
Well, you you can get a brain injury from a fall, which then can lead to increased risk of dementia from the brain injury. You can't, and also as Laura mentioned, if you end up in the hospital, if you have to have surgery, if people, you can kind of think of it as we age, we get closer and closer to a cliff. And one thing may bring us over that cliff, or we can kind of just hover along the edge of that cliff forever and never go off the cliff into what we would say is dementia. So if you kind of think of it that way, so if we're already on the cliff and then something happens, that changes our schedule really significantly or changes our way of doing things significantly, you have to move your loved one because the home situation is unsafe, and you move them, they were fine before going into that new home, and now they seem like they're dementia. Like, how did that happen? They were really close, and then the changes brought them over. So yes, fall can, but usually it's because of the hospitalization that caused some delirium, and they never quite went back. Or anesthesia, seen that a lot, where somebody has to go under anesthesia and they don't quite get back to baseline. So not typically direct cause, but all of those factors can for sure bring somebody over into a diagnosis of that. I would say the only thing that I would add as far as with Laura, that Laura already says, so key that yes, I'm a therapist, and I do believe therapies can really help, but I will say I totally agree with Laura that for our older population, especially our currently older population, may be different as we age, but they didn't grow up exercising. Exercise is really, there's actually studies showing that the rote exercise, right? Yes, Mom, lift this weight 10 times. Not a lot of carryover into decreasing fall risks. Movement, mobility, keeping people active, keeping people engaged, the social isolation, making sure that that doesn't happen. Those are the things, the purpose to get up every day is really what makes the difference. And then I will also add that the environment really needs to be assessed, because we don't want the environment to be hindering the process, right? We want the environment to help in keeping people mobile. So if someone is, again, maybe they've got a diagnosis of Parkinson's or something like that, and their bedroom or bathroom is still upstairs, by plan ahead and before those stairs become difficult, and figure out what the solution is going to be. Or if we already know there's some issues with lifting those feet up to get them up, then we do need to look at the bathroom, make the plan. If you're having trouble getting in and out of bed and you're now sleeping in a recliner 100% of the time, maybe because they're having trouble getting in and out of bed. So let's try to see if there are things that we can do to keep people active and moving, getting in and out of the house. So if somebody is stuck in their home, how can we modify the entry exit so they can get out of the house and still participate in community events? So all of those things kind of added with, how can we make the environment, how can we facilitate the activity level?
Bill, you have any?
Yeah, remembering that my perspective is equipment, lift chairs, scooters, power chairs, walkers, beds, all that kind of thing. I absolutely love that we've had this discussion for about 5 or 10 minutes. They're all about decreasing the fall risk and haven't mentioned equipment at all. I was loving learning. I figured that would happen today also. I learned from my colleagues. But that's such a big thing. When you come into a sport like mine, there are a lot of things that can help. That can help you stay socially engaged. That's one of the big things for me, is I see people coming in that are isolated. That was mentioned a few times. And if you need a piece of equipment to get out and keep from being isolated, great. If you can't get out of bed, that's pretty depressing. We've got equipment that can help with that. But I absolutely love the idea that equipment is not your main perspective. It's a tool that you use to keep yourself or to have a lower fall risk and to be more mobile and to be more social.
Okay, so we all have.
Steve, friend question.
Oh, yeah, question.
Yeah, so again, I'm not, luckily, as far as what is happening to us, in our brain with the anesthesia. All we know is that somebody going under anesthesia, if they're already kind of on that precipice, they already have possibly some underlying dementia, we just haven't noticed it. And then they go under anesthesia, I'm not saying 100% of the time, but yes, absolutely increases risk. Or it could be that for 6 months after the surgery, whereas when we were 40 and had surgery and went under general anesthesia, we were fine the next day. When we're 80 and going under general anesthesia, it might take 6 months to go back to baseline. But it's usually when people are kind of have those underlying, again, they're fine at home, they're fine with their spouse, they're fine in their daily activities because that's what they do every single day. But now you've added this change, something's happened, the fall, the surgery, and it brings them over the edge. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. So, is this, I would say, is there an age for, or it's, amount, it is considered individual person who has, no,
No, it really, everyone is so different on what their baselines are, on what they're, how they are walking in. And a lot of times we just don't know. Or again, it's been hidden, based on their lifestyle, right? All those things that they've been doing well, and then it's changing it to really. So, yeah.
Just on the topic of dementia, because I feel like that's a big, right? That's a big thing. That's why I brought the cognition. I think it's so important with dementia that we really understand, one, get a diagnosis, because there's nothing worse than seeing unspecified dementia. It drives me nuts because there's a difference between how you treat, Alzheimer's versus Lewy body, right? So you really have to advocate to get neuropsych testing to really know, number one, what kind of dementia it is. Okay. Secondly, all right, if and when that dementia progresses, okay, one of the top tips I will give you for why behaviors begin are unmet needs and identifying in your loved one what those unmet needs are. So for example, like you're talking about, somebody might be standing up a lot, coming down, standing up a lot. Like she was saying, they're saying, sit down, sit down. Typically that person, especially as dementia exacerbates, right? They may lose their communication skills. And that's their way of telling you they need something. It could be the bathroom. It could be they're hungry. It could be water. It could be they want to walk, right? So another tip is if you have somebody that is sundowning and that's kind of their high time of fall risk, right? That's when you do the physical activity, right? So if you're going to have PT come to the house, try to get that later. Some people might not do that. Or if they're going to walk with your loved one, don't wear them out in the morning. Wear them out during sundowning. That's when you want to do that supervised walking, right? And then that's when, after that walk, when you're kind of wore them out, then you're transitioning into, let me give you an engaged activity to keep you seated, keep you safe, especially as we all know, some of us have to leave our loved one at home alone. Let's be honest, we all, right? We're all in the reality, not everybody can afford 24/7 care. That's another conversation for another day. But my point being is those are some tips and tricks of kind of managing and getting that loved one with dementia into a routine now is crucial, right? And you don't say, do you want to go for a walk? Oh my goodness. When my student interns say that to somebody with dementia, I'm just like, do we all want to hop on the Peloton? Sometimes, right? But again, it's like, hey, let's go walk to get that ice cream, right? And that's where your loved one's the best, right? So those are just, I hope, helpful because I do think that's a big topic.
All right. The next question. We all have family, friends, partners. We're getting older. How do we begin to notice an increased fall risk? What do we do? Cynthia.
So the things we look at when I go in, I do health assessments all day. So, the things and for years have been in OT, over 30 years now. So when I assess someone, to see their fall risks, there's number one, if they see a physical therapist, they're gonna be doing specific testing, right? Like they get up and go or tub. It's not gonna come to me at the moment, but it's a get up and go test, the walking speed test. They're gonna do all those. They're gonna get statistics for you on, this is the results of the test. This is the risk. Okay, so that's something a physical therapist can do. But functionally, what I see and assess on fall risk is number one, current bruising, things like that. I'm gonna really ask questions about their near falls, about when they maybe have tripped or have they slid to the floor. Because sometimes I'll say, have you had a fall? They're like, no. And then I keep talking and it turns out they slid off the side of their bed. That's a fall. So we would need to know that so we can address probably the height of the bed is too high. So we ask all those questions to kind of get a sense of risk. And then obviously just watching somebody move. If they're doing a lot of furniture surfing, right? Holding on to furniture as they walk, also increased risk. They're basically saying they need something to hold on to ambulate. Okay, so that is when the first words of that is when we would say, okay, we need to probably be looking at an assistive device. Because you're obviously needing some upper body support. But then also looking at the quality of gait. Somebody who shuffles, increased risk. Somebody who refuses or not wearing the right shoes, increased risk. Somebody with neuropathy, swelling in their feet, increased risk. Those are the ones that kind of stand out. And then obviously some obvious balance issues when they're walking, and how they get up, sit to stand tells us a lot. Also, when they adjust in their ability to get up from a seated surface, we get a lot of information from watching them.
Bill,
Yeah,
we want to talk about durable medical equipment, talking about falls. So what kind of durable medical equipment can address these fall risks?
sure. A lot of folks, I just wanted to add a little bit of what Cindy was saying. A lot of times I'll tell people when they're asking about it is to look at the chief places in the house that fall risk is private bathrooms, which is kind of private, but it's so important. 80% of falls are in the bathroom, and there's lots of sharp things in there. So be mindful and be a little nosy, how are you doing in the bathroom? Standing up, sitting down is very, very common, of course. They have trouble standing up, sitting down, out of balance as they do so, getting in and out of bed, etc. But the main thing I tell people, little advertising for OT, because folks don't really understand, I think a lot of times what Cynthia does as an occupational therapist, she helps people figure that out. And a lot of times you can come in and say, oh, Mom, I can't stand up and think she needs a rollator. Find your rollator, and I'll answer your question more as I get into that. But really, an occupational therapist is the professional person that can really help evaluate.
Roller's not going to help somebody stand up.
So your question to me, what is helpful? So I like to kind of think of, just to help you kind of put equipment in perspective. I like to think of equipment in 4 categories. Some people think of it in terms of a ladder. I don't really like that much, but I'm going to mention it just so you can be aware. So the second, we'll start on a walker, we'll move to a rollator, we'll go to a lift chair. It doesn't really work like that, but sometimes it's helpful. I think what's more helpful is to think about categories. And so walking support is a category. Those you love like need help when they're walking to make them more safe. they need to consider a walker, a rollator, a cane, whatever. Transport mobility, because you're not going to have trouble getting somewhere. Wheelchair, transport chair. I know my wife, when I got into the business, was like, oh, she was a young 50-year-old, young 50-year-old. And she's like, oh, I just don't think folks need those scooters and power chairs and things like that, stair lifts. Well, one week into owning the business, she had a back issue. And she became my best patient. She couldn't get to upstairs without a stair lift. She couldn't get to the doctor without a transport chair. She couldn't get to the potty without a scooter. She rode one of my scooters to the potty. So, transport mobility is the second category. Walking support, transport mobility, making sure they can get to places safely. Powered mobility can give some more independence of mobility. That's power chairs, scooters, and supportive equipment. So these supportive equipment are things like beds, bath safety, lift chairs. These are key places where fall risk can occur. So these are types of equipment that can address the risk in those areas.
Something I have on my list that we haven't talked about, are there different levels of fall risk?
Yes, in the sense that somebody who is aging completely beautifully, like we all know that we age, and yes, all of those changes that are occurring in our bodies, but we're still active and functional, and no balance issues that we, can even note. That's a lot less risk. The risk is still there because of all of the aging issues that we've talked about. We are at a higher risk at the age of 80, even if we are aging beautifully, than when we were 20, 30, 40. Okay. But now you add those things I mentioned before, the neuropathy, the swelling in the feet, the arthritis, decreased vision, decreased balance for various issues. Maybe there's a neurological diagnosis, Parkinson's, or any of the movement disorders are hugely affects their mobility in all different ways and increases risk. So there's, as far as a number, the number you'll get is if you do those testing with a physical therapist, they would be able to tell you based on your scores what your specific risk may be. But that's pretty much it. You're not going to get that number from, honestly, a physician, right? They're not really going to be assessing those things. It's really a physical therapist who can give those specific risk numbers. Does that answer your question?
I think so.
Let me just add a very important point. How many of you love Amazon? Oh, okay. We all should not be on there at 2 a.m. and then you wake up and you have your regrets. Anyway, point being, I love how all of a sudden, because we have Amazon, we have access to all this stuff. All of a sudden, we are occupational therapists and we're ordering our own toilet seats off of Amazon, right? How many of you have heard that? I mean, people are buying walkers, toilet seats, right? I'm a rec therapist. I work as a therapist and I'm not picking out equipment for people, right? So please make sure you get an occupational therapist to come to your house. It is covered for the most part. We can get into coverage, maybe that would be helpful later. But please have a professional. Don't just go on Amazon and make your Christmas wish list and all of a sudden you've got all these fancy equipment.
It's work for your neighbor, but does not mean it
Right.
has to be individual.
Yes.
Perfect example. I'm 5'2" on a good day and only going down from here. I will never need, unlike my friend here, a raised toilet seat. Never in my life will I need a raised toilet seat. So that is the one thing, if your loved one goes to the hospital, what do they give you? Bedside commode. May work as a bedside commode, but then they'll say, just put it over your toilet and that'll help. Sometimes it's just the armrest we need on the toilet to be able to stand. But if you put that too high for your elderly mother who is also 5 foot on a good day. Now her feet are dangling while she's toileting, and we don't want that because that really changes the way she can breathe. So it needs to be individualized. So thank you. Yes.
We talked earlier about most falls occur in the home. What are areas of the home that are most associated with fall risk? How can we manage
Well, I mentioned it a little bit, so I'll rephrase what I said here and let these folks kind of get into it more. Bedroom, bathroom, 80% bathroom, bedroom, the nighttime passage from the bedroom to the bathroom is a big deal. Couches, getting on and off the couches, getting on and off of chairs, anywhere in the bathroom, getting in and out of the house. Stairs could be a big deal in there, really bad if fall down. So these areas need to be looked at in particular. So.
Yeah, I mean, those are the prime areas. And what I typically say, like when I do a home assessment, I look at every area of the home and then make recommendations based on how that person moves in and uses their space. So where they want to go based also on their desires. If they're still cooking and they want to be able to get in the kitchen, then I'm looking in there. But as far as the high risk areas, like what Bill said, bedrooms are probably the biggest one. When I really started doing this, getting in and out of bed and nighttime voiding is huge and has to be specifically addressed on how that's going.
The only thing I would add with the bathroom is, especially for my people that are caregivers, is if you do have to leave your loved one at home, take them to the bathroom before you leave, right? Because some of that is like they're rushing to the bathroom, right? And they don't have the supervision. So that's another huge fall risk is when they're rushing to get to the bathroom, because then it's like they're not even thinking about the bars, right? They're just getting there unsafely. So again, going back to those unmet needs. And if you are lucky enough to have caregivers at home, don't wait until they have to go. Like get into that routine and taking them ahead of time and frequently will definitely decrease that fall risk.
Okay. Anything else as far as what we can do in the home to mitigate risk?
Question, this might be off topic of managing small risk, but any tips or ideas of someone who's very comfortably together with it? It is a full risk, but has that pride aspect of, I'm only using a cane, but I'm shuffling the furniture, surfing all the things you're saying that, you know, encouraging, is it like bringing a therapist or like, I mean, how do you encourage someone to take more seriously being a full risk when they're just kind of fighting about it? It's like,
Yeah, that's very common. I mean, everyone is different. The way I specifically approach that is really sitting down and really talking with them at wherever they are and really not poo-pooing the, you shouldn't be prideful about it, you know, like that's a real thing. And I absolutely, it is so hard to age. And as my mother-in-law always said, it is not for the faint at heart. It's very difficult. So, and as everybody's telling you what to do and how to do it, oh my gosh, I know I'm going to have a really hard time. So I really try to meet people where they are. And I encourage you all to not to understand that part of it. And then talking realistically, right? If somebody really, let's say, for example, is like that, they really want to stay in their home, then talking about it in that way of this is how we are making sure you are going to stay as independent as possible, because then that is when they're autonomous. When the minute falls start to occur, people will take away that independence. So I try to go at it from that direction, that this is going to allow more independence and not take away your independence. And this is going to allow you to be more active and not less active. Especially if you can find the things that they really like to do. And then I do talk about the varieties of equipment. A lot of times people are more open to a rollator than a walker, a regular rolling walker. So is the rollator appropriate for them? And then also making sure for somebody who you know, the minute we walk out the door is not going to use that assistive device, then it's imperative that we have the environment set up to still facilitate their safety. So if the environment is set up and we know they're still gonna furniture search, well, let's make sure that furniture is sturdy on the way where they're going. Let's add the grab bars in a spot where they always put their hand. Let's make sure the environment is set up. If you know they're just not gonna follow through.
What I would add to that, and then we'll get right to you, sir. As a daughter, it has to not come from a family. I'm telling you right now. When you tell your family member, you can't drive, you need to use a walker, it's going, right? So again, use those covered services to come in there. They have to hear it from a professional. And then secondly, there's a lot of benefit when that professional tells that family member, right? Of course, the individual falls, but then also so much of that, let's just say the stigma is that walker's holding you up, right? That's not what it's for, right? When you tell people and you educate them, sorry, I'm so tall, I really break your neck. But like you tell them that's to catch you from the fall. It's not for you to, it's not a crutch, right? So like the education is half the battle of you're not putting all your weight on this cane, this walker. It's if you lose your balance, right there is you saving a hospital visit. So that for what it's worth.
I will make a note on the walker use. I hear that all the time, is I will not use a walker because it makes me bend over or makes me look old.
Yeah.
And that is because we see people all the time walking with our walkers like this, right? That is not the walker doing that. That is the person using the walker who's doing it. We do not see mothers with their strollers pushing their babies like this, right? We see them pushing their babies like this. That is the same way we use a walker. It has to be within the frame of the walker that they are walking. So that has to be taught. Again, that's my plug for therapy is that does have to be taught, that has to be educated. But if they're bending over, that is not the walker's fault. Has to be the right size walker as well. So that does need to be looked at, the right height. But they should not be bending over. It's not a walker. They have to sit up, look at where they're going.
That's one of the main points when I refer to ETs, because I do a lot of walkers, a lot of walkers in my store. When I see somebody not standing upright, I'm like, you didn't work for that day because you need to.
By the way, I chose roller chairs for y'all, just to.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask about shoes. Types of shoes that are late Christmas to fall, types of shoes that are food Christmas.
So we would definitely avoid backless shoes. That's pretty standard across the board is no backless shoes. Shuffling really increases fall risk, as we talked about before. Even if I wear flip-flops, I'm going to shuffle more. So flip-flops encourage shuffling. I see people all the time wearing their slip-on slippers throughout the house and barely lifting their feet as they slide around them. So that number one. So no backless shoes. As far as the sole of the shoe, it really depends on the issue. Does anybody here have family members, whatever, with Parkinson's disease? Yeah. Okay. So Parkinson's disease has that shuffling, right? The shuffling gait. If we put too thick of a sole, right, the real sticky rubber sneaker sole, that can actually increase their fall risk. So we would look at the shoes that have a little bit of a smoother, kind of that plastic composite. I'm actually even thinking about your shoes. But, yeah. So, but avoiding the real thick, sticky sneakers for some people, if they are going to shuffle, especially if they have Parkinson's. But good supportive shoes. The slip-on shoes are great, like Skechers and Kizik's, as the you see advertised on TV. Those are awesome. I would say the majority of my clients have those. They're very easy to get in and out, and they have a variety of options. And you don't have to worry about shoelaces. So yeah, so brand sneakers are in now. So you wear sneakers everywhere. So it's okay.
Questions?
Sorry, so, you were talking about like, they need to learn how to use a rollator or walker appropriately. Do you have much success with somebody who has dementia, though, teaching them how to use that? Because that's our struggle.
Everyone is different when it comes to how easy they get it. But you're right, the majority of time, they're not gonna remember it to use it if they're on their own, so no cues, right, around. And they gotta go to the bathroom. They're most likely gonna forget to use it, which goes back to, well, then we need to make sure the environment is set up in a way that they have the best possibility for success. To be able to get where they need to go. And then if they really need to be using, and I hate to have to say this because I know how difficult it is, but if they really need to be using an assistive device, then more supervision is required if they really need to be using it every single time they get up. But number one, environment, some things can really help.
And another addition I'd make to that, and again, everybody's different with dementia, but I've seen some success. I mean, my mom was just in the hospital this past weekend, and her roommate, the walker was on the wall, against the wall, right? And it's like, come on, people. So even something as simple as that, when somebody's in bed and you're afraid they're going to get out without you, have the walker right there. And some people, they actually benefit, and a lot of speech therapists will do this. It's like they'll have prompts, words written out. Did you have your walker or take me with you? And before they leave the house, do you have your device? But sometimes they still drive. We can all write books. But anyway, everybody's different. Try to set up that environment for success as much as you can with those walkers, and they still might not have it. Anyway.
So with regard to the dementia, if you have a family member, for example, who's in bed most of the time and in a facility where they don't know that they're supposed to, not get out without getting assistance or something, how do you manage it? You just do strategies that move the bed close to the floor, you put a mattress on them, and just know that that's going to happen? Is there anything you can do to get them back to that baseline? Or once they're like 90 in their 90s, you just have to accept that's the way they're going to live?
When it comes to dementia, can you get it back to?
I'm talking Alzheimer's too.
Yeah, for Alzheimer's specific, yeah, I mean, Alzheimer's unfortunately is progressive, so it's gonna be hard to get to return.
Right, so what's the strategy for it?
So definitely environment, so yes, making sure the bed is safe for them to get in and out of. Sometimes it doesn't usually mean bringing it all the way down to the floor, but making sure that it's a good height for them to sit at. Nothing to trip over, all that kind of stuff. There are then other safety things you can add, like alarms,
Okay,
cameras,
something.
yeah, alarms, cameras, lots of different options like that as far as tech. Tech is also, there's sensors that are starting to become more popular, obviously fall detection, devices, that lots of different options there. I'm happy to answer questions if there are questions about that kind of stuff. But yes, when somebody has dementia, you know they're not going to remember the cues, like Laura was saying, environment, and then we might have to do alarms and cameras so that way somebody knows to go into the room and
Right,
start to pick it up.
But by the time the alarm goes off, they've already fallen. You know what I'm saying?
Sometimes, But again, that it, unfortunately, it's this increased supervision
Okay.
is sometimes the answer, and that, again, is very, very difficult. Some of the cameras, I will say, you can have like, even if it's an Echo Show 8, right, or 5, or whatever the typical one is through Amazon, you can have a camera on your phone or in your room or whatever, and then you can talk to it. You can say, Mom, hold on, I'm gonna be right there. And so you can talk to them as you see them get up out of bed. A little harder in a facility, I think you were saying, if it's facility.
Right.
Yeah.
When I lived in skilled nursing facilities, we would partner with nursing, and what you do is you do tracking. It's not 100% foolproof, but if there's a certain time and trigger, trying to figure out what that time is, right? And trying to partner with the nursing team on there, like, hey, Mom's falling every night at the same time, right? What is it? Okay, and then they're either going to say to you, I don't know, is it continence, whatever. And then in some cases, they will tell you, well, we don't have enough staff for all this, and some people will hire private caregivers. But the one thing I would say is track it first. Why, when, right? And if there's no pattern, there's no pattern. Typically there is. So sometimes you gotta be Nancy Drew. I love being Nancy Drew.
That's it. Okay, thank you.
So, I want to get back to the insurance thing because, then, I met my mom. And she's not, it's okay for you. So, you do whatever, but I never once, as much as, occupational therapist. I mean, she doesn't even work, but she,
Welcome to my world. It's so frustrating. Yeah, so, so occupational therapy, just to give you, we're the ones who look at all those things we take for granted until they're harder to do. So the ADLs, right? Now, OT is very much part of the rehab team, OT, PT, speech. If you've ever even had a doctor order PT for your loved one, it may even say OT/PT or OT or PT. We are two different professions. So OT is not done, we as a profession have not done ourselves any favors. And I have my opinions on home health therapy, and that's part of what has not done well for either profession, of OT or PT. OTs should, though, be ones who would come in and assess ADL status and then make recommendations to maximize someone's safety and function for their ADLs, whatever they want to be able to continue to do. I personally, this is what I have focused on for the past 8 years, is doing these home assessments. I have created a way to be able to get that paid for through Medicare B. Okay, so Medicare B is outpatient therapy. That's if you go to a PT clinic, your loved one goes to a PT clinic, getting paid for by Medicare, it's under Medicare B. So it's different than home health, which is Medicare A. So under Medicare B, I'm a mobile OT with a doctor's order, can come in and get a home safety assessment through Medicare B. Medicare Advantage programs are a little bit different. There's usually a copay of some sort. Totally depends on each Advantage plan, so you'd have to find that out. But it's the same process as far as having an order for an OT assessment from a doctor, and then it can be covered under insurance. There are some rules they can't be getting home health at the same time you get. So even if there's wound care, home health, or nursing, or home care aids through home health, not home care private pay, but home health aids, you cannot get Med B services at the same time. The other thing is that your loved one has to be in the house, has to be where I see it. So I get a lot of calls from people whose loved one is at rehab because they've had their fall. And then they're like, oh my gosh, they're being sent home and I don't know what to do in the house. And we make sure this doesn't happen again. And I'll get calls from the case manager at rehab for go out and do the home safety assessment, make recommendations. Cannot bill Medicare for that because they are still at rehab. So, and I can't bill Medicare if they're not in, if I'm not seeing them. So that's done privately, and can do things privately. And I talk to the therapist at me, and I say, okay, how are they moving it? So that way I can know what they need if they're not.
We'll do one more lesson. I might have to wrap this up. Please.
So I started coming out of the share the review, sir. When we were talking about all risk for medication, didn't come up specifically, but what I'm doing, like if I'm sitting down with an aging place client and we're talking about all their risks, that and scoring is also something we're looking at. I'm working with someone who doesn't have a memory issue, whether it's just they cognitively are fine. But we look at whether or not the things that they need to access, especially medication that are in their bathroom, are too high or too low. So they're not bending down, because sometimes just the process of bending over causes them to get wonky and they fall over for that reason. I've also found clients that will tell me that they have pain issues, and all of a sudden they'll get a shooting pain, and that will be really buckle or something like that. So I really try to talk about all the things that are happening before they start to feel like they're in a fall. And I found that that's really helpful. I had a gentleman who did not know he was a rollator, because he did learn. He was really anti-rollator. And I'll tell you how I got him to do it. He wanted to fire around his house. And I said, you would be shocked at how many things you can fit in this basket. And I said, try scary things and hold yourself up. Put some low stuff inside the basket, on top of the seat, and move it all over the house. As soon as I look at that, he uses it all the time. Because it's not just to get the hold yourself up. It's the way to use it. Because they're so good. And even it's not travel talk about the independence you can get to be able to do things. Take your clothes to the closet. Where I struggle are when I get them used rollator, or they finally invest in the scooter, but it's only used at home because they can't lift it to put it in their. I mean, not just the scooter, obviously, but even a rollator. Sometimes they fold it up, they can't put it in their car. So, do you have some advice on what options for that? Because that's where I really need to push back, is like they're afraid at home, but as soon as they go out to the community or go to the senior center, they're still using the cane. And they can get around so much better at Walmart if they would just do that. So what are their options?
Right, I'm trying to make some high-level comments about that, because I could probably go on for quite a while. That is usually the biggest part of conversation with folks, like when they're not store and they're evaluating equipment, is the transportability of that equipment. Probably 1/3 of people maybe don't care about that. They're just going to use it in the highway. But 2/3 of folks, the equipment is no good to them unless they can transport it. There are a lot of solutions to that, and it all goes along with capability. So I've got a lot of people that say, well, here's a really great scooter, and you can take it apart into 4 pieces, and the heaviest piece is 35 pounds. Well, I can take it apart into 4 pieces, or I can't lift 35 pounds. Okay, so we've got another solution. Other solutions might be adaptations in the car, which we do too, that have lifts and things like that. It can be expensive, but if you need a heavy scooter, that might be where you need to go. But more and more and more now, equipment is turning out that's extremely light. I'll just give one example, and I'll just use it as a way to say, really, we can come into the story, but we talk a lot more in depth about this. But here's a piece of equipment that just came out. Folks have been looking for power chairs that they could get somewhere for a while. All the power chairs you can get from Medicare weigh 200 to 400 pounds. If you want a power chair that is transportable somewhere, you're going to have to pay out of pocket. Until recently, power chairs like that have been minimum of 100, 110 pounds, or even a lightweight. Now, just recently, a power chair has come out from Pride that weighs 35 pounds. It has a 400-pound capacity. I'm just blown away by this. This is just remarkable. 35 pounds. Say, I still got to lift 35 pounds. Well, we can work on that too. But this type of thing is solving problems for purposes, new equipment. So, come to whatever or other stores, we can get a more in-depth look at how the equipment works and match it to your capabilities.
I would also say just practicing I always see how, how are you trying to fold the walker, put it in your car? Let's see if we can figure out a way that actually can be done this year, is actually looking at it. Because, yeah, walkers, or maybe it's looking at, or there are different weights of rollers. That maybe it's a much lighter weight rollator that it keeps in his car, has a different one inside the house. Making sure that he can obviously get out of the house if he needs to with the rollator. Making sure that's not the issue, that it's actually getting in and out of the house that's difficult. But yeah, it is really just thinking how he's doing it and then making recommendations.
Very good. Bill, Cindy, Laura, I'd like to say thank you for expertise that it's like brought to us as really have this conversation. And I hope that all of you, a lot of it, a lot out of this, this is what ACAP programs are all about. So whether you leave tonight with one new thing to try the whole way of thinking, that's a win. So also watching incredible, let's remember that people in this room are exactly the kind of advocates who really make a difference. So our next program next month is coming up on June 11th, same time, same place. The program is recognizing and reducing caregiver compassion fatigue, and our speaker is Chafin Hart, who is the National Board Certified Health and Wellness Coach. She's a very good friend of mine, and she's a very dynamic speaker. I think you all will really enjoy her. So please, I want to say thank you one more time to our sponsors here in the back. Please chat with them. You're welcome to chat with our panelists. I want to say to all of you, thank you for coming. You guys want to drive home state.